Rashid Shaheed was all smiles in his first day at the VMAC. What's he so excited about joining the Seahawks midway through the 2025 season? We'll be diving into his opening comments and taking a deeper dive into where he fits into Seattle's offense. Coming up next here on our Wednesday edition of Locked On Seahawks.
You are Locked On Seahawks, your daily Seattle Seahawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, 12. This is Corbin Smith, host of the Locked On Seahawks podcast, your daily Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Glad to be joined, as always, by my co-host in crime, Rob Rang. And a special thanks to all the 12s who are tuning in, whether you're in nearby Issaquah or tuning in from Marion, Indiana. We greatly appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much for being Locked On Seahawks, your first listen 5 days a week. The Rasheed Shaheed era is underway officially in Seattle, passing his physical. He's on the 53-man roster and practiced today. What did he have to say in his first day with the Hawks? We'll be diving into comments from both Coach Mike Macdonald and the new receiver. Plus, we've got Matchup Wednesday gearing up for the first NFC West rematch of the 2025 season as the Cardinals come to town to battle the Seahawks at Lumen Field. All this brought to you courtesy of our friends over at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Now for your lead story here on our Wednesday edition of Locked On Seahawks. As is normally the case with mid-season trades, the entire process was expedited. Rashid Shaheed flying out to Seattle less than 24 hours after the Seahawks traded 2 day 3 picks for him, passes physical, gets his uniform on, and gets to practice today with his new team. We got to hear from Mike Macdonald as well as Shaheed himself, and obviously both guys all smiles, really excited about this addition. And let's start off first, Rob, with a few of the comments coming courtesy of Mike Macdonald, Seahawks head coach. Said of Shaheed, our type of guy, there's a presence. There's a difference to him out on the field. He's a playmaker. The speed's real and working at making plays down the field. But we felt like he's a great player too. We had an alignment. It was Clint Kubiak. It was our personnel folks. And John Schneider, he can worry about the compensation and all that. But it was great. I love that Mike Macdonald, it's so different. We know Pete Carroll was heavily involved in personnel decisions. You know, Mike Macdonald's pretty much like, hey, that ain't my cup of tea. Like, we'll tell him who we want. And then that's all John Schneider. But I thought it was interesting hearing both these guys kind of reflecting on this being a move for a guy that can help this football team beyond just the second half of the season. And it goes back to what we talked about yesterday. I had been told as soon as the trade went through that this was not viewed as a rental. Obviously, he's got to earn that contract with how he plays over the next couple months. But Shaheed himself saying that this is where he's planning to be long-term. He'll worry about that after the season, but he's not worried about the two sides being able to get this done and him being a key 1-2 punch with Jackson Smith and Jigba moving forward.
Yeah, and I think that, look, there's going to be some out there who are going to say, well, of course Rashid Shaheed is going to, the very first time he meets the Seattle media, say all of the right things as far as, sure, I see myself here long term and all that, but it does make some sense. I mean, you just consider the fact that Rashid Shaheed has had some, let's say, some inconsistencies at the quarterback position in New Orleans, the only other NFL team in which he has played at this point. A lot of his statistical success has come with Clint Kubiak, as the play caller. And so there is some familiarity there. And then, again, I think that any player that wants to compete, I mean, obviously the Seahawks at their record 7-2 are already, 6-2, are already a significant upgrade than the 2-7 New Orleans Saints at this point. So I think that it's going to be exciting from that regard as well. I also thought that it was interesting. One of the very first things that Mike Macdonald said when asked about Rashid Shaheed was that he characterized him as our kind of a guy. And I do think that that's interesting because, everybody from scouting and an evaluation standpoint, I can see the player on the field. I can see his speed. I'm excited about how that his physical traits line up in this offense. but I don't know much about this young man's personality. His smile lit up the room. However, during its introductory press conference, every source that I have with New Orleans Saints is just kind of gushing about this young man and just who he is on and off of the field. We know that the Seahawks have always prioritized those types of things. So I would agree with you, Corbin. I think that this is not so much a rental as the Seahawks are viewing this as opportunity, perhaps to have a big-time playmaker here for the rest of this season, hopefully for years to come.
And on the field, we can worry about contract stuff once that arrives in the offseason. But on the field, the Seahawks are going to be anticipating that they get immediate contributions from Shaheed, not just because of the fact that he's getting here as early as he possibly could in the week. He's going to get all the practices in, but also the ties to Clint Kubiak, who he played for in New Orleans last year. And he was asked today in his introductory press conference how much easier that was going to make the transition for him. And he had this to say from the VMAC.
Familiar with Clint. Super glad to be connected back with him. He's familiar with me. He knows my strengths, and I know what his mindset is going into games. And, it shouldn't be too hard to get acclimated with him and just, find my role in the offense. It's pretty much the same, little tweaks here and there, game planning stuff. But from the first looks of it, it looks pretty similar. It's just going to take a minute to, get used to the verbiage again. And, it should come pretty quick.
We talked about it some yesterday, Rob, just kind of on the surface in terms of what Shaheed did last year in Clint Kubiak's offense. And he averaged almost 18 yards per reception. He was a lethal downfield threat. He was one of only 3 receivers in the league in the first 6 weeks that had 3 touchdowns of 20-plus yards. In fact, they were all at least 40 yards. They were bombs, including a 70-yarder against the Dallas Cowboys. And that was before Dallas's defense became completely dysfunctional this season. They at least were decent last year. So you look at what he did. He was dynamic downfield, but there was so much more to it. And those of you that are watching the show, listening in, make sure to check out EmeraldCitySpectrum.com. I have a full film breakdown I unleashed about an hour ago, diving into a bunch of plays on all 22 from Shaheed's time with Clint Kubiak last year. And I think the thing that maybe excites me the most, Rob, is how much he was utilized as a multifaceted weapon. I think if you watch those games, Derek Carr was really good the first 2 games, and then the last 3 games with Shaheed. Shaheed had a couple of other touchdowns if Derek Carr would have made even decent throws. He looked terrible the last 2 or 3 games in the watch that I had. And I think there's a reason that New Orleans was thinking even if he didn't retire, we might go some other direction because his consistency went out the window. Shaheed had a 50% catch rate, and that doesn't really do justice to the hands he has. He's had 2 drops his entire NFL career. There just were a lot of really poor throws to him. So the numbers he had last year were with somewhat poor quarterback play for a good chunk of those 6 games. But what excites me is the fact that they utilized him. More than 30% of his routes were digs and crossers and out routes, which are all staples in Clint Kubiak's offense, and he ran them crisply. This is a very underrated route runner that maybe wasn't when he came in the league, but he has turned into that now. And he is able to improvise. There was a pivot play that I watched that he made that he worked with Derek Carr when he got out of the pocket, improvised his route. He just does a lot of those small details really, really well. And I'm also excited how he can be involved in the run game. They only had 1 jet sweep with him last year. He had a 44-yard touchdown at a jet sweep his rookie year, though. So he can be utilized that way. They ran a couple of really cool end arounds that had much different dressings last year. One of them was a fake counter with a fullback block going to the outside after initially stepping inside that was dressed up really well. They had another one that was a split zone that they had the guy wham blocking across just end up going all the way outside as a lead blocker. And they even used him on a toss sweep out of the backfield as a running back on one play. So you want to talk about a guy that you truly can move all over the formation. He can play slot, boundary positions. He can play in the backfield. You can motion him any way you want to. Clint Kubiak knows how to do all this stuff, though, because he's already done it with him. And again, that's why this is going to be such a smooth transition.
Well, it's one of the reasons why, yeah, I expect it to be an immediate, impact kind of a player. And whether he makes any receptions against the Arizona Cardinals this week or not, Corbin, if he is on the field, then he already will be making an impact just because all eyes are going to be on him. The straight line speed that he possesses obviously gives him a vertical threat. For those of you who are late to the party, this is a guy that while he did not run at the combine, he wasn't invited to the combine. He was running in the 4.3s, had 7 kickoff return touchdowns over his career at Weber State. He is, he was a track star initially. And as you said, Corbin, that he has become a very astute route runner as well. And that to me is one of the most exciting things here is it does feel like this is still a young player whose best football is ahead of him. And so again, very excited for what he is going to be able to provide. For those of you who are watching on YouTube, thank you so very much. For those of you who are listening, maybe you didn't see the jersey number that Rasheed Shaheed is sporting, number 22, an interesting jersey number. And so I think that it kind of speaks to the idea that maybe he will be lining up some in the backfield for the Seahawks, similar to what they did with Jackson Smith and Jigba a week ago, and in that impressive victory against the Washington Commanders. Who among the linebackers and safeties for any team in the NFL is going to be able to cover a receiver of this type of speed if you're going to line him up in the backfield, if you're going to put him out of the slot, if you're going to put him outside? Again, if you put him outside, then that should just create that much more breathing room for JSN, for Cooper Kupp, perhaps even Torrey Horton to operate as well, and certainly for Seattle's tight ends. So again, I think that this is kind of the frosting on the cake, so to speak, of an offense that already is humming, but it could be performing that much better with Rashid Shaheed on the field.
And as I said, make sure to check out on EmeraldCitySpectrum.com. I've got a lengthy film breakdown diving into all the route concepts, the big plays, the run game usage, you name it. It's there for Rasheed Shaheed in his time with Clint Kubiak last year and what you should expect to see with him in Seattle's offense, linking back up with Kubiak. Up next, it's matchup Wednesday, round 2 against the Arizona Cardinals, but plenty of differences going against the division rival in this rematch coming up. A generally healthier Cardinals squad. We're going to be looking at the Seahawks offense against the Cardinals defense. That's coming up next here on our Wednesday edition of Locked On Seahawks. The NBA is officially back, and there's no better place to get into the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of a game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head on over to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Nobody likes paying rent, but if you must, you might as well get something for it. And that's where Built comes in. Built is changing the game by turning your rent payment into real rewards you can actually use. When you pay rent through Built, you earn flexible points that can be redeemed toward hundreds of hotels, airlines, and a future rent payment, your next Lyft ride, and much more. But Built isn't just about rent, it's about rewarding you around your entire neighborhood. I love that with Built, your rent finally works for you. You're earning points every month on something you already have to pay. Built has made everyday life more rewarding for your neighborhood to your travel plans. Turn your rent into rewards and start earning points around your neighborhood by going to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNFL. That's JOINBILT.com/LockedOnNFL. Make sure you use that link so they know that we sent you. Welcome back to the Wednesday edition of Locked On Seahawks. I'm your host, Corbin Smith. He's Rob Rang. A special thanks to each and every one of the 12s listening in. And thank you, as always, for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. It is on to week 10 and the first NFC West rematch of the year. The Seahawks and Cardinals getting ready to battle round 2 in Seattle at Lumen Field. And it's interesting, Rob. It doesn't feel like it's been that long since these teams met. At the same time, though, that was way back in week 4. It was a Thursday night matchup. And even though Arizona is going to be without quarterback Kyler Murray, who ended up on injured reserve today, so the Jacoby Brissett era is going to continue for at least 4 more games. Seattle will get their first look at him this week. This is a team that is generally a lot healthier away from the quarterback position than what they were the last time that these teams met back in week 4. And it starts in the trenches. And I looked back. This was one of the matchups we were looking at in the first game between these two teams, because Arizona had Calais Campbell, it's incredible what that guy is doing at 75 years old on the football field. I mean, he is just absolutely dominant still at times at 39. I said he was 75, but in NFL years, 39 is like 75, especially for a defensive lineman. He is getting up there, but he's not showing it on the field. They've got a couple of really good young players. Darius Robinson starting to figure things out a little bit. And now they are welcoming Walter Nolen back into the fold. He made his debut last week. You can ask Dallas about how that went for the Cowboys offensive line. He was not a fun blocking assignment, and that's not surprising. A super athletic interior defender that the Seahawks had some opportunities to look at in the pre-draft process. And now the Seahawks interior offensive line, Gray Zabel, Jalen Sundell, Anthony Bradford, all 3 of those guys are going to be tested by a player who can move around the line. Even though he's a little smaller, he's played the nose tackle position before. He can dominate as a 3-tech. He's got great penetration ability. You add that with Campbell and Robinson and having somebody like a Dalvin Tomlinson in there as well, a bigger body. I mean, the Arizona Cardinals now have a wrecking crew in the middle. It might not be Seattle's interior defensive line in terms of star power, but this is a very formidable one that is made that much better by Walter Nolen. This is a big test for Seattle's inside offensive line.
Yeah, it really is. I think that this is the correct matchup to highlight first, just because I do think that the Arizona Cardinals defensive line is arguably their best positional group overall. And I do think that this is a Seattle offensive line that has, of course, played very, very good pass protection all season long. Only 9 sacks allowed so far, coming off a game in which Sam Darnold, was barely even touched in that football game. In the victory over Washington. But again, I think that this Arizona defensive line is very talented, similar to how we were just kind of gushing about what Rasheed Shaheed might be able to bring the Seahawks wide receiver core. I think that the rookie Walter Nolen is going to make an already talented Arizona defensive line a very formidable group. If the Cardinals are able to pull the upset, then I do think that it's going to be Arizona's defensive line that is going to be leading that process. You mentioned Walter Nolen's versatility. That to me is one of the things that's most intriguing about him. He lined up both defensive tackle spots, both traditional 4-3 defensive end spots against the Dallas Cowboys, was effective almost regardless of where they put him. You are correct in as far as describing his game, just how quick he is off the ball, his agility. So for all of those who have been, just eager to blast what the Seahawks have had at the right guard position with Anthony Bradford. Anthony Bradford can move people in the running game. Where he struggles is in redirecting quickly. That's exactly kind of the counter to what Walter Nolen possesses. So this is going to be a formidable matchup for him. I think that the length of a Darius Robinson and certainly that senior citizen in Calais Campbell is going to provide all kinds of problems for a rookie that's playing very well. And Gray Zabel still hasn't allowed a single sack on the season. But again, this is a formidable matchup. And then you mentioned Dalvin Tomlinson. He actually was the guy among these 3 interior defensive linemen for the Arizona Cardinals who gave the Seahawks the most trouble in that week 4 matchup. So you're right, Corbin. It doesn't feel like it's been that long ago, but in terms of Walter Nolen and several other key defenders getting onto the field now for the Arizona Cardinals in this particular matchup, in some ways it's been a lifetime ago. This is a much better defense than what the Seahawks beat in Glendale back in week 4.
And that also includes the secondary. Now, Seattle's going to come into this game with the shiny new toys we just mentioned, with Rasheed Shaheed playing in this game. And he's actually played against the Arizona Cardinals earlier this year when he was with New Orleans, had some big plays in that game. But you're going to be going up against a Cardinals secondary that looks a lot different. Now, Max Melton played the last time these teams got together, but We didn't get to see Garrett Williams, who's been playing a lot in the slot since he came back from his injury. And he's a guy that's had some success in the past against DK Metcalf. I know Metcalf won't be playing in this game, but the point is he's played well against the Seahawks in the past. And they're also going to have their second-round pick, Johnson, the corner out of Michigan, is going to be back in the lineup for this one. So they're going to be full strength at corner. Jalen Thompson will sometimes slide down and play that slot position, but now they can keep him at his safety spot for most of the game. That makes their safety position that much better. So this is kind of a strength-on-strength type matchup now because Arizona feels very confident in the core of cornerbacks they have when everybody's on deck like they're going to be this weekend.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you mentioned Jalen Thompson is going to be able to play that safety position again for the Cardinals. I think that's going to play an impact in Seattle's running game. That was something when you move him outside to that nickel spot, since some of the tackling, Budda Baker is terrific as open field tackler, but so is Jalen Thompson. And with him playing that nickel spot, Seattle was able to exploit that a little bit in that week 4 victory. So I do think that this is a positional group, again, that is going to be more formidable than maybe some Seahawks fans are thinking it will be. Will Johnson is a real player. His speed, his playmaking ability, he's a highly instinctive player. At the same time, he is the kind of guy who is willing to take gambles. So I do think that Jackson Smith-Njigba in particular should be able to give him some trouble. I'd love to see Cooper Kupp on the field with the way that he sets up, cornerbacks. He would definitely be very impactful in this particular football game as well. And then obviously the straight line speed that the Seahawks just brought in with Rasheed Shaheed and what we've seen from Torrey Horton. Again, this is going to be one of those fun matchups. And I, again, quickly want to go back to another matchup I think is critical. The Seahawks' greatest statistical success so far running the football in this season was actually in that week 4 victory in Glendale. 155 combined rushing yards in that particular football game. So I'm curious to see if Seattle attempts to run the ball as frequently in this particular game with Jacoby Brissett as Arizona's quarterback as they did, trying to keep the ball out of Kyler Murray's hands. So no question about it. Kenneth Walker III, Zach Charbonnet. I'm curious to see how effective they are in this particular game against a much improved, at least in my opinion, Arizona Cardinals defense.
And I'm almost wondering if that might be, and that tells you where things are at, because I certainly don't think Mac Wilson's a bad linebacker. And, Akeem Davis Gaither is a solid starter as well. Yep. But that might be the position now that is the weakest link with all the pieces that they have brought back. And Seattle had some success running between the tackles as well as outside in that game. It was definitely their most balanced rushing attack in terms of efficiency and success. So can you get those running backs going against those linebackers, get them to the second level? Missed tackles have been a little bit of an issue for Davis Gaither, and he's had his issues in coverage too. We saw them get A.J. Barner matched up against him for a touchdown in the first matchup. The running backs were more involved last week in the passing game. I'm wondering if we might see a little bit more of that in this rematch, pivoting that away, try to get those one-on-ones against the linebackers as well, and that could work in Seattle's favor, no question. When we come back, we are going to flip the script to the Seahawks defense going up against the Jacoby Brissett-led Cardinals offense. That's going to be coming up next here on our Wednesday edition of Locked On Seahawks. This episode is brought your way by Duer. I'm so excited about the new jeans arriving soon from Duer. I've heard the most amazing things about these jeans, and I cannot wait to wear them. Duer jeans have 5 times the stretch of traditional denim. They're antibacterial, meaning your jeans stay fresh longer so you can wear more and wash less. And made with Coolmax that regulates your body temperature and wicks moisture. It keeps you cool and comfortable as the temperatures change. Duer combines classic jeans wear style with the kind of comfort and performance you get from athletic wear. It really is the best of both worlds. It's designed to look great and stay comfortable all day, no matter what you're doing. Duer are pioneers of blending technical innovation with everyday clothing, and they invented the original performance denim. Simply put, Duer makes the world's most comfortable pants without having to sacrifice style. Trust me, once you try these, they'll be your go-to. Get a pair for yourself or as an amazing holiday gift by going to shopduer.com/LockedOnSeattle. You'll get 50% off your first order. That's shopduer.com/LockedOnSeattle for 15% off. Welcome back to the Wednesday edition of Locked On Seahawks. I'm your host, Corbin Smith. Glad to be joined, as always, by my co-host in crime, Rob Rang. And a special thanks to all the 12s who are tuning in. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. Rematch number 1 in the NFC West coming up for the Seahawks Cardinals round 2 at Lumen Field. As we continue to dive into our matchups, let's switch over to the Seahawks defense going up against a Cardinals offense now manned by Jacoby Brissett, at least for the next 4 games, with Kyler Murray now on injured reserve. They've got Slovis as the backup going into this game. So it's a much different looking offense in terms of the types of plays they've been running, leaning more in that West Coast style system. Rob, in this rematch, what's the first matchup that jumps out to you from a Seahawks defensive perspective?
Well, my eyes are always going to go to the players I feel are the most talented on the football field. And for my money in Arizona Cardinals, it's going to be the pass catchers. So whether it be focusing on Trey McBride or Marvin Harrison Jr., those to me are the players. I'm going to go with Marvin Harrison Jr. just because I'm excited to see the way that Seattle matches up. I mean, it felt like Harrison had his breakout moment so far this season against the Seahawks. He was the difference maker that wound up making that a football game after Seattle essentially dominated the game. And Harrison, of course, had struggled with drops early on. And he has had a little bit of inconsistency even with Jacoby Brissett on the football field, but he looked really good against the Dallas Cowboys on Monday Night Football, and I like the creativity in which that they are using him. He's not just going to play outside. He's been moved inside to the slot. So whether it be Reek Woolen going up against him, I love Reek Woolen's length and straight line speed against Harrison, whether it be just the tenacity and the instincts of Devin Witherspoon. If Josh Jobe is able to get back onto the field, of course, he is in concussion protocol, so that remains a question mark at this point. But still, I do think that Seattle can slow down Marvin Harrison Jr., make Arizona a little bit more one-dimensional. That is your easiest recipe to beat to go 2-0 against the Cardinals in 2025.
And I think one player in particular, Devin Witherspoon, he is going to have an extra large chip on his shoulder in this game because he was not right in that game in week 4. Obviously, he aggravated that bruised knee during the game. He gave up 2 touchdowns. And if you go back and watch the film, the second one he got beat. The first one he was in perfect position, but Marvin Harrison just skied over him and made a phenomenal catch in the end zone. But you can't tell me that he's not salivating with the opportunity to go out there fully healthy now and make some amends for the mistakes that he made in that game. And he had some uncharacteristic missed tackles in that game as well. So Witherspoon's going to be looking at that. I think Nick Eamon-Warry could get some reps in this game going against Harrison as well, which he didn't play in the first matchup at all. And speaking of Eamon-Warry, I think where he really makes a difference in this game is defending Trey McBride, who Arizona will play in the slot. They'll move him out into the boundary. He is a fantastic receiver regardless of where you line him up. But before Eamon-Warry sprained his ankle in the season opener, we only got to see a few snaps, but he was basically following George Kittle wherever George Kittle went in the early stages of that game. I'm expecting to see something pretty similar in this game. Not that Witherspoon won't get some reps against McBride as well, but Eamon-Warry's got the size to disrupt McBride. And I think it's one of the big reasons that they drafted him and traded up to go get him is because not just the athlete, but with that size and the physicality he plays with, they want him to be matched up against these really good pass catching tight ends that are in the NFC West. So I'm looking at Eamon-Warry. I'm looking at maybe some Kobe Bryant against him. Maybe we'll get to see Ty Akata against him. The safeties, they're going to do some mixing and matching. But this feels like this is the role Nick Eamon-Warry's been brought in, at least for now. They want him to be that athletic, massive cover corner / safety that can go up against these really athletic tight ends that are built to make damage happen in the passing game. So that is going to be one I'm very fascinated to see because this will be one of the tougher matchups Eamon-Warry's had. He only got a few plays against George Kittle. This is going to be the real first star that he's had to go against in the tight end position. I expect he's going to get a lot of reps in this game to show what he can do.
You convinced me, buddy. I feel kind of silly, to be honest with you, because I 100% agree with you. I think that this is the matchup that really could dictate how effective the Arizona is offensively. And obviously, if they're able to put up some points, then they can make this a little bit of a football game here. Just because for all the reasons that you just talked about, as much respect as I have for Marvin Harrison Jr., as excited as I am to see Devin Witherspoon in his kind of payback opportunity here, I have to agree with you. I think that Nick Emanwari was basically drafted to try to silence opposing tight ends. I love the fact that you mentioned how that he was being tasked with slowing down, George Kittle and the San Francisco 49ers in the opener. And we haven't seen him, Nick Emanwari, be asked to basically shadow an elite tight end. And there's no doubt about it that Trey McBride is an elite tight end, certainly being paid as much as 4 touchdowns in the 3 games in which that Jacoby Brissett has been the quarterback, after having only 1 touchdown the entire season in which that Kyler Murray was quarterback. So clearly he is the face of their offense in terms of pass catching at this point. So yeah, I feel a little remiss in mentioning Marvin Harrison Jr. first. And I do think that this is going to be that get your popcorn kind of ready matchup when the Arizona Cardinals are on offense and the Seahawks are trying to create some pressure on Jacoby Brissett. It makes all the sense in the world that is who the veteran quarterback is going to try to feature. And so maybe this is the game, and Nicky Emanwari is able to get his first big turnover. So I think that this is going to be a fascinating matchup to watch.
And I think last but not least here, because we are talking about a quarterback change, Jacoby Brissett, I mentioned this yesterday on the podcast. He's not a statue. I'm not going to sit here and say that he is Elvis Gerbach. This is not a guy that's just going to stand in there and act like he's got cement on his feet. There's some mobility. He's just not near the athlete that what Kyler Murray is. And that's not what he's looking to do. He's not looking to get outside the pocket and make a bunch of big plays running around. What he will do that Kyler Murray does not do in the passing game, he will attack the middle of the field. And not just because he can see over the offensive line, but that's just a big part of his game. That's one of his strengths, the ability to throw the football over the middle. He is going to test Seattle's linebackers in a much different way than what Kyler Murray does. When you're playing against Kyler Murray, you have to worry about him wiggling out of the pocket and being in spy assignments and all those things. In this game, that's not going to be as a concern as much as, can we get back into our coverage drops and can we take away those 15, 20-yard crossers that Jacoby Brissett is going to want to throw? That is going to be crucial. When you have guys, like Wilson going over the middle, Harrison, you have Trey McBride, all those guys are going to be working over the middle of the field in this football game, more so than they would if Kyler Murray is under center. It is a different style passing game. And that is going to fall on the linebackers that are healthy. Now, I do think it is good news that although it was a walkthrough today, Ernest Jones was a limited participant. So he at least did something. It looks like there is a chance that he could play in this game. But if he doesn't, Tyrese Knight has played well against the Arizona Cardinals in the past. Drake Thomas had a pretty good game against Arizona on that Thursday night contest. Seattle feels like they can get by with those guys, but both of them are going to have to really be on their A game in coverage with what Jacoby Brissett does well, getting the football over the middle of the field. So that is a matchup just because he is not normally the quarterback, and this is just a different offense with him out there. It's going to put different responsibilities as far as priorities for those linebackers in this football game for the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a chess match. Tyrese Knight up against Bam Knight. We'll see. It could be interesting. And then Amari DiMicardo is another talented pass-catching back as well. I don't expect that the Arizona Cardinals are going to be able to run the ball that effectively against Seattle. We know that the Seahawks have the top-ranked run defense in all of the NFL. And of course, ever since the injury to James Conner, the Arizona Cardinals' rushing attack has been pretty much hamstrung. And obviously, with the injury to Kyler Murray, as you said, I mean, Jacoby Brissett, is not a dynamic running threat. He is an astute scrambler. He will take yards if the Seahawks defense allows it, and that is a possibility if Seattle decides to get very aggressive with their blitzes. There are opportunities there. He is, again, astute. He is a veteran, and so he will recognize some of the holes in coverage that perhaps Kyler Murray struggled with. But at the same time, I do think that you're right to kind of point out the linebackers in coverage. That is one of the things I was very impressed with Tyrese Knight, a former edge rusher that showed some chops in that regard as a rookie a year ago. If he is indeed on the field a lot more in this game, it remains to be seen if Ernest Jones is going to be out there, then I think that is one of the areas in which he can show that he has made some improvements. Drake Thomas has shown himself to be a playmaker, had those 3 pass breakups in a game just not too long ago. So really interested to see if Seattle is able to keep Jacoby Brissett from completing the passes over the top, limit him to the little dinks and dunks. And I think the Seattle is going to be able to cruise to a victory in this game.
As always, you can follow me on X and Blue Sky at Corbin Smith NFL. You can follow Rob at Rob Rang. Make sure to subscribe to Locked On Seahawks on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts to make sure you don't miss a single episode. Coming up tomorrow, it's round 2 of Crossover Thursday with Locked On Cardinals. You won't want to miss it. That show will be coming early in the morning for your listening pleasure as we take a deeper dive into the upcoming Week 10 rematch at Lumen Field. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, and thanks for listening. Go Hawks.